For most of human history, cats were irrelevant. Not dangerous like wolves, not useful like horses, not food like cows. Just small, fast, completely indifferent creatures living in the wild that humans had absolutely no reason to interact with. And yet today, there are more than 600 million domestic cats on Earth. They sleep on our laptops, knock things off tables for no reason, ignore us completely for days, and then demand attention at 3 a.m. There are more cat videos on the internet than any other type of content in human history. But here is the strange part. Unlike dogs, which humans shaped over thousands of years of deliberate breeding, cats essentially domesticated themselves. No human tribe decided to tame them. No ancient farmer sat down and said we should invite these small predators into our homes. Cats chose us. And the reason they did is one of the most accidental and unlikely stories in the history of human civilization. To understand how it happened, you need to go back about 10,000 years to a moment that changed everything about how humans lived. The invention of agriculture. Before farming, humans were nomads, moving constantly, following animals, gathering plants, never staying anywhere long enough to store large amounts of food. But when humans learned to grow crops, everything changed. For the first time in history, people stayed in one place. They built permanent settlements. They harvested grain and stored it in large quantities to survive the winter. And grain attracts mice. This is the moment that made cats inevitable. Wherever humans stored grain, mice appeared in enormous numbers. Mice ate the grain. They contaminated it. They bred faster than humans could control them. A single pair of mice can produce over 500 offspring in a single year. A large grain store without any control could be devastated within months. For early farming communities, losing their grain store was not an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. That grain represented an entire season of work, an entire community's survival through winter. Losing it meant starvation. And wildcats noticed. The African wildcat Felis libica was already living across the Middle East and North Africa in the same regions where the earliest farming communities appeared. It was a small, solitary predator. Excellent hunter. Fast reflexes. Highly tuned to detecting and catching small rodents. When grain stores full of mice appeared near human settlements, wildcats had a simple choice: stay in the wild and hunt prey that required real effort to catch. Or creep toward these strange human settlements where mice were so abundant they were practically falling over each other. The math was obvious. The boldest wildcats moved closer. Not because they liked humans, not because they wanted companionship, purely because the food was easier. Just like the first proto-dogs that crept toward campfires for scraps, the first proto-cats approached human settlements for rodents. And unlike wolves, cats came alone, silent, nocturnal. They rarely interacted with humans directly. They simply lived nearby, hunted the mice, and occasionally let themselves be seen. Here's what makes cats so different from every other domesticated animal. Humans did not tame them. Humans did not select them for friendliness or obedience. Cats selected themselves based purely on which individuals were calm enough to tolerate human proximity without running away. The anxious wildcats that panicked at the sight of humans stayed in the wild. The calmer ones that could operate near settlements without fleeing got access to an almost unlimited food supply. Over generations, those calmer individuals had more kittens. Their kittens inherited that tolerance. And slowly, over thousands of years, the wildcats living near human settlements became genetically different from the wildcats living in the wild. Not because humans bred them deliberately, because the calm ones survived better. Archaeologists found the earliest evidence of this relationship in Cyprus around 9,500 years ago. A human grave containing the carefully buried remains of a person and a cat placed close together. Cyprus had no native wildcats, which means a human brought a cat to the island deliberately on a boat. Someone 9,500 years ago valued a cat enough to take it on a sea voyage. That single grave changed everything scientists thought they knew about cat domestication. It pushed the timeline back further than anyone expected and proved the relationship between humans and cats was already emotionally significant thousands of years before anyone had written it down. Ancient Egypt took this relationship to its most extreme conclusion. By around 4,000 years ago, cats in Egypt had moved from useful pest controllers to sacred animals. The goddess Bastet was depicted with the head of a cat. Killing a cat in ancient Egypt was punishable by death. When a family cat died, Egyptians shaved their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. Millions of cats were mummified and offered as religious sacrifices. Archaeologists have found cat cemeteries containing hundreds of thousands of mummified cats. This is perhaps the most remarkable cultural reversal in history. An animal that began its relationship with humans by silently hunting rodents in grain stores at night ended up being worshipped as a god. And cats barely changed to make any of this happen. This is what separates them from every other domesticated animal. Dogs changed dramatically from wolves. Smaller jaws, floppy ears, different coat patterns. An entirely new capacity for reading human emotions. Thousands of years of human selection reshaped dogs almost completely. Cats look almost identical to their wild ancestors. The African wildcat and a typical domestic tabby cat are so similar that scientists struggled for years to tell their skeletons apart. Cats kept their hunting instincts completely intact, their independence completely intact, their territorial behavior completely intact. They made the minimum possible changes to live alongside humans and not a single change more, which explains something every cat owner has experienced and never been able to fully explain. The feeling that your cat is tolerating you rather than loving you. Dogs evolved over thousands of years to read human emotions, follow human gestures, and form genuine attachments to specific people. When you point at something, a dog looks where you are pointing. When you are sad, a dog responds to that sadness. When you stare into a dog's eyes, both of you release oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Cats are different. Studies show cats do form attachments to their owners. They do recognize your voice. They do behave differently around you than around strangers. But they express it on their own terms, on their own schedule, in their own way. Because cats never needed to adapt to humans the way dogs did. Dogs had to learn to read us to survive alongside us. Cats just had to be calm enough not to run away. Everything else they kept exactly as it was. And yet somehow that combination, the independence, the unpredictability, the occasional affection that feels earned rather than automatic, is exactly what billions of people find irresistible about them. When your cat jumps onto your lap at 2 a.m. and starts purring, it is not performing loyalty the way a dog does. It is making a choice. And because you know your cat could choose differently, because you know it does choose differently most of the time, that moment feels like something real. 10,000 years ago, a wild cat crept toward a grain store in the ancient Middle East, not because it wanted a relationship with humans, but because the mice were right there, and hunger is a powerful argument. Tonight, that same fundamental indifference is probably sitting on your sofa, and somehow that makes it better.